Hi everybody, it's Kat here. I'm here today to talk about a personal experience of mine with a family court forensic psychologist, and what has really prompted me to talk about this is an article I read recently, how the NSA collected data on U.S. citizens and social connections, and really just reading about it and reading about how they have been collecting information and how it's possible that it can be misused and no one really knows because it's all kept secret and classified. It really just got me thinking, and I decided that I wanted to share my story of how my information was misused, in my opinion. And I'm not saying I know for sure that it came from the NSA, but I do think it is a possibility, and so I just want to get this out there. So, first off, I want to say that I am not going to get into details about the circumstances of what got me into this interview. If you want to learn about them, then go to my website, read about my story. I do think it covers multiple important issues that, it could be interesting to read, as well as, just start you thinking on what is going on today. So now I will ask you, just go on a flashback with me. Think about elementary school and middle school when they taught you about internet safety. They always told you, don't put any of your personal information online. So I never did. I was very careful to make up fake names, fake birthdays. I never put any personal information on the internet. Well, so what ended up happening for me is that I went in for this interview and I ended up being shocked that I come in, and during the interview, he picks up this stack of papers about this thick, filled with just my emails and my Facebook messages, my phone calls. Yes, all of that. But not just, okay, I called this person at this time, not just I received this email from here. They were full-blown, word-for-word, everything. I mean, he read my phone calls to me, every word that was spoken. He read emails to me, Facebook messages, everything. And I was just shocked. I was also, at the same time, I was frightened, to be honest, because it's like, how does he know all of this information? And at the time, being only 12, I did not know what to do about it. I did not know that he was not supposed to have that information. I did not know that he was actually required by law to have a warrant to be able to obtain that information. And so, at that point, all I knew was that here I was, sitting here as a kid, terrified and just really not knowing what to do, because here this guy is knowing all of my personal information that ever went on the internet, fake or not. And so it was really, frightening and intimidating, and I do think that it was meant to intimidate me into saying what they wanted me to say, because he was not the first one to try and intimidate me. But I will not get into that. Well, so the way this ties into the article is that I just think that if it didn't come from the NSA, it came from somewhere similar, that they had access to similar information, and a lot of what is in the article, it just asks, how can this information be misused? And I think that the way that they use it against me is a definite indication of how it could be misused. So, if I just dive straight in, towards the beginning of the article, it states how in 1979 there was a Supreme Court ruling that Americans should not expect any privacy of what numbers were called. Okay, so I already, through reading this article, I know that, okay, so it is possible that, okay, it was totally fine that he knew who I called at what time. Great. But how did he get my word for word statements that I made only in that call? I mean, not that anything criminal happened, not that I said anything bad, but even just the smallest things, like how I said hi, how I responded about how my dog was, stuff like that. He knew every single word. And it scared the bejesus out of me. I gotta be honest, it would anyone. And so, I mean, I didn't know what to think about that. And, as stated later in the article as well, there is actually a warrant necessary for any agency to be able to actually listen into a phone call and to know what you are saying. And so, my question is, how is it possible that he listened into my phone call or just knew everything that was said in that phone call without anybody having a warrant? No one knows? I mean, I don't understand. How is it possible? And so I am starting to think that, maybe it was because he was given information by sources, possibly from the NSA, possibly from another agency with similar information. He had to get it from somewhere. And the question is just where. And this is the one source that I have recently read about that makes me think, what if it's from here? So one of the really frightening things about having this information known, and especially through reading this article, one of the frightening things that was really brought to my attention is the fact that metadata, which I actually looked up the definition to, it's pretty much all information, not specifically, but like what documents you open online, where you get your emails from, who you send your emails to, at what time, where are you when you do it, who do you call, who do you get calls from, again, time and where, it's all known, what links you click online, what online documents you open, everything like that is considered metadata. And so I found it pretty frightening to find out that, that can be looked at. It can be examined and investigated without any warrants necessary, without really anything. And it's like, I mean, in the article, they say it's the digital equivalent of tailing a suspect. That's a direct quote. But really, in my opinion, I think it's worse. Because even if you are, say, tailing a suspect, you can't read what's on their phone. You can't know exactly who they're talking to unless you have bugs. You don't know all of that. But with metadata, you know that and more. I mean, you can figure out everything that they like, everything that they don't like, just by looking at what they search on the internet and what they click on and what they're more interested in terms of looking on the internet. Because you have to admit it, a lot of people nowadays are just spending a lot of time on the internet searching around with stuff, and it's how they figure out who they are. They can figure out the smallest things about you just through looking at that information, and I find it really frightening. I mean, I just think that it's horrible, and what ended up happening in that interview just went even beyond that. I would like to make a point of the fact that nothing in my emails or in my messages or in my phone calls was criminal or anything. I wasn't under investigation myself. There was no reason why they should have it. And if there was something incriminating, they actually probably wouldn't even have told it to me straight out in that interview. Because really, I think it was just an intimidation tactic, because they didn't have anything. They didn't end up having anything at all that they could use out of that. And so it was really just used for intimidation. And I think that, if they did it to me, who was a 12-year-old child at that time, I was only 12 years old, and they were using it to try and intimidate me, I mean, how many people would break under that kind of intimidation? How many people would just break down and say whatever they wanted just so that they could feel a little safer inside? Especially kids. If they're willing to use it against a 12-year-old, I really don't think that they would twitch at using it against a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old. You never know. If it wasn't that the NSA, who had this information and who passed it along the lines until it reached my psychologist who was interviewing me, how were they allowed to do that? Now, later in the article, they do say that analysts were warned to follow existing minimization rules, which prohibit the NSA from sharing with other agencies names and other details of Americans whose communications were collected. So, I'm an American. My communications were collected. Through what source? Who knows? But, I think that's very possible that was the NSA. So, how is it possible that they could just be given this information, no warrants, there are rules against it, and yet here I am, or rather there I was, sitting there, having my phone calls and emails read to me, with dates, times, everything. And what am I supposed to think about that? What are you supposed to think about that? What is anyone supposed to think about that? This is all kept classified. It's kept secret from us. So, if we don't know about it, how are we supposed to do anything about it? Aren't we supposed to have our privacy too? What? It's just because I was a kid, I don't deserve that? Well, at least my parents should have, been told, been given a warrant, but nope, they were not being informed of it. Their lawyers were not informed of it, and it is my belief that the judge was not even informed about it. And so, how is this possible? How is this allowed to happen? I guess this is where I'll end my video. I just really hope that I inspired some thoughts in your head, because really, I'm just one person speaking out with my experiences. Again, I'm not even positive it came from the NSA, but I do think that there is a chance, and if it didn't come from them, it came from another agency who is doing something similar, because that is not public information. It was specifically given to him. And I think that if it happened to me, it could happen to you, it could happen to your friends or your family, it could happen to anybody. And so, I want it to be known. And I hope that this video was useful, helpful, or at least interesting to some of you. So, one more thing that I thought of while I was editing the video that I just want to add in is, throughout these articles, they keep mentioning how, what about, how are American citizens being protected? Are they being protected enough? How, is their information being used incorrectly? But I would like to stress the point, what about people who are citizens of foreign countries like Russia or Japan, Germany, France, Mexico, anyone who is not a United States citizen? It is never stated that they are protected. And so, I just really want to think, what if you're just an ordinary person going about your everyday life? You will have no idea that, your phone calls are being listened to, that your computer is being read for all of its information. What if you're a CEO of a company or a politician? What about how they were spying on a Brazilian state oil company? I just really think that's something to keep in mind. So, thank you for watching my video and for listening. I hope that it was interesting.